Garfield the movie. I don't know how anyone knows how to keep up with this crap anymore. I mean, you Google Garfield movie and get like, what, 10 different results? But this is it. This is the definitive one. It doesn't get any better than this. Or does it? Yes, it does. This might be the worst Garfield-related thing I've ever seen in my life. And yes, that includes things like this. Now, I don't want to sound like some kind of super fan, because I know how crazy a lot of funny-looking people online can get about this ridiculous orange cat, so I would just like to detail my experiences with the character. These two movies and this show, and all the movies that came with that show. Never read the newspaper cartoon, never watched Garfield and Friends. My experiences and understanding of this character are very limited. But isn't the whole idea of a Garfield movie kind of missing the point? Surely this character fits the structure of a TV show way better. Because the entire concept is a lazy cat that doesn't do anything, therefore a movie's need to have a plot and a character arc instantly misses the point. But anyway, that's an issue with all of these movies as a collective. Let's get into what makes this movie, specifically, so bad by talking about the plot. Let me take your hands, I'm shaking like milk. The plot of this movie was an actual headache to try and sit through, mostly because the first half an hour feels like it's trying to speedrun itself. So much information and plot being communicated so fast, it feels like the studio is terrified of the babies who are sat watching this in the cinema, looking away from their screens for even so much as a second, unless they are constantly being entertained. Despite this, however, it still manages to be insanely boring. I do not give a shit about anything that happens in this embarrassment of a film. But let's go through it anyway. Garfield starts his day by doom-scrolling on Uber Eats, ordering as much as he can before breakfast, when he looks directly at the camera and tells us of the horrible time his father abandoned him. For some reason.
And like every great story, it all started on a dark and stormy night.
A very cheap excuse to show a cute little dibby character and make the whole audience go, aww. I wonder if his father abandoning him will have anything to do with the rest of the film. Now, I'm sure they just threw it right into the beginning for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, then it just cuts to the next day. Fuck. Garfield and Odie are kidnapped by these dogs, and then someone saves them.
You.
Oh look, he's made it into the narrative of current day. Who could have guessed? Turns out, the only reason this cat kidnapped Garfield and Odie was to get to Garfield's father after he left her to go to the pound during an old job they did together, and she wants him to pay for what he did. With milk. Garfield and Odie must go with this guy in order to get the milk from this farm in order to pay off his debts, even though Garfield doesn't even like this guy, he's just being forced to do it after he abandoned him as a child. Anyway, they find a guy who used to work on the farm and hates it now, and then he trains them to break into the place.
Excuse me, you're Otto, right?
At this point, it just becomes another generic heist parody.
The straightest line to the loading dock is through the snail here, then the cricket there, cut through the toadstool and onto the rock.
Like the thousands we've seen before, but somehow just a little bit more forgettable. By the way, John has spent the entire movie on hold so far trying to find Garfield and Odie.
Doesn't really accomplish anything, but gives you the false sense that we're engaged with you.
During the heist, they get caught, except Garfield's father manages to escape and takes with him all of the milk, leaving Garfield and Odie to be sent to the pound. Garfield gets really angry until all of the people there start telling him about all the times as a child he went to go visit him and watch him grow up or whatever.
He'd leave in the middle of a job just to go see his kid.
Yeah, he said he wanted to check up on him, make sure he was doing okay.
John obviously saves them from the pound in the end, and they go to find his father, only to find out that this other cat has also been evil this whole time. What a great twist that nobody saw coming because nobody cared hard enough to think about it. Anyway, I'm losing interest, so let's just get to the end here. They throw this cat off the bridge and live happily ever after. Then it just becomes a weird father-son type movie all of a sudden, with just montages of them doing shit together, to pad the time, I guess. And then, the moment we've all been waiting for, the movie finally ends.
I have planned, though I'm thrilled to meet you, I'm just a minx.
Thank fuck. Honestly, the plot of this movie is weaker than the Bill Murray one. I didn't think it would ever be possible for me to be talking about another movie and wish I was talking about that instead. I'm actually yawning sitting here reading through my notes. Now let's move on from the plot and weigh out the pros and cons. I do appreciate the film's effort to reference production. Like now and again the lighting on a character's face will change and then it will pan back to show just a character holding a different coloured light or something. Or like when Odie pulls down a black screen as a scene transition. It reminds me of the comics when Garfield would make references to the fact he was a 2D character being drawn in a newspaper, or in the TV shows when he would talk directly to the audience.
I know where you live.
Which he does also do in this film a few times. It's just not very funny. But that's about it in terms of things I liked about this movie, so let's just get on to the negatives. The first thing I noticed about this film was the visual style. It looks like an Illumination animation, but turns out was made by Double Negative Productions, which essentially means that other companies are now just copying this boring, lazy looking art style, which is great news. Another thing I hate about this movie is how it feels the need to shoehorn in the use of smartphones and technology directly into the plot. I honestly can't tell if that's a real critique or if that's just like a pet peeve of mine, but I just can't stand it when the main character in a film just whips out a like iPhone and starts talking about apps. Like, shut the fuck up, that's disgusting. Lastly, however, I would just like to talk about the music, because I never really noticed it until it pissed me off. Right at the end, they try and play these big orchestral pieces to truly highlight just how emotional of a moment these final scenes really are. And it just falls flat on its face. Seriously, it's the most annoying thing ever when a film score tries to convey emotion and you're just sat there cringing because of the surface level, lazy writing that got us here to begin with. Like, just cut it out already. So I think I've wasted more than enough time in my life thinking about this movie. So, in conclusion, should you watch Garfield the movie? Yes. If you're between the ages of 3 and 7, you might like it. Any older, and I would say it's probably just a waste of time, but I guess there's nothing stopping you, so I would just recommend a couple shots of vodka to help you along the way. Not if you're 7 though.